Hello, good morning, greetings, whenever you find yourself watching this video. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. Thank you so much for catching this live. If you're here on the live stream on YouTube, if you're catching this on the replay on any of the other platforms, hello, welcome. And of course, if this is your first time here, welcome. So glad you found this channel amongst the sea of all of the other options out here. Welcome to the Starseed Ministry. It is Monday, February 20th, 2023. So, today we did have a new moon. About 8 hours ago, it was exact at 1 to 2 degrees Pisces. So, of course, we're going to talk about that today. There was a large an X-class solar flare, or so we've been told. We're going to look at some of the data that is being presented about that and go over a little bit of information about that today. Of course, I have a reading to share with you as well. And yeah, it's a little bit of a sober type of message today, and when we get into the reading, you're gonna see why. So please take good care of yourselves. I'm sure you're already doing that, and truly, when I say gather your courage for the title of this transmission, I really mean it, and I am directing that at myself more than anything else. So for those of us who are part of the Starseed Fellowship, which is our membership group, you can link in the description box below if you're interested in what that all entails. And I'll go over some of the stuff that goes along with that. But we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, just where things are headed, and it is getting pretty heavy. We are pretty much allowing the veil to drop for ourselves and to get really real about what's going on, what's coming down the pipeline, and what we're actually going to do about it. So the tone is very sobering. It's been since the last full moon. As I was explaining to someone just last night, the last full moon, my head was flipped around. And it's not that I was engaging with any information or knowledge that I didn't deep down know already, which is what makes it a little bit easier when you come up to this brick wall in this Uranian type of, here, let me just completely flip the script on everything you thought was going on and present you with the next layer of reality here. And so it's been pretty rough. It's been very destabilizing, like I said, very sobering. That seems the word to just keep coming up, which is why I have at least endeavored to be more sober in many different ways and very vigilant over the last couple of weeks. And, you know, for those of you who are watching on other platforms like Odyssey or BitChute or even Rumble, you may feel like that I could be more direct about some of the things I'm going to talk about, but just keep in mind I am streaming on YouTube. And as much as I don't really care about my reach for my own sake on YouTube, my ultimate and only goal is to minister to starseeds truly for this time. And so I want to cast the net very wide, which means I have to be very mindful about the way that I'm speaking about things. So, but I have a feeling that most of you already know what I'm talking about, and as I expand on things, you'll have a good idea of what I'm talking about. So if you feel like that you're kind of hitting this wall of like, okay, things are just not adding up as I thought they should by this point, it's okay. And don't be afraid to just admit to yourself that, you know, it's okay to be wrong, and it's okay to be like, wow, I was really led down this particular path, thinking that it was where I wanted to go, and realizing that you've hit a dead end, realizing that somebody messed with the directions for you to get there or intentionally misled you to keep you from actually seeing what is truly going on. It's okay, right? And I feel like this is some of the biggest ways that we kind of block ourselves from knowing the truth, is that it's so difficult. And somebody that I have been listening to lately had made a comment recently about how, you know, some people, it's so hard to really make the about face or to really face the truth of the situation that they'd rather just burn and get it over with. And when you see the reading today, you'll see that they're going to get their chance and their opportunity will present itself. And it may not necessarily be as quick and painless as they're hoping. It may be better to walk through the fire with that trust and that faith in your heart that, God's leading those of us who have that connection in our hearts will lead us through the fire unscathed. But it takes an incredible amount of courage and trust and faith, which is not easy to come across. It is not a fluffy process at all. I remember one time hearing someone who I don't like at all, so I'm not going to tell you who they are, but I remember one time in one of their videos being, it's okay, you're a light worker, nothing's going to happen to you. And I was like, okay, I'm going to turn and run as far away from this person as I can possibly get. Not to say that we shouldn't have faith in and trust in our own faith, but to be so brazen about leading people into a state of false security is so irresponsible. To say the least, it's probably intentional. So anyway, I could go on and on about that. And certainly in the Starseed Fellowship, we have been really diving very deeply into this information. And it's really upsetting, right? Somebody last night was just like, I don't even want to leave my house. And in fact, I do want to bring this one thing up. It's okay maybe to not leave your house for, 3 days maybe, making sure you have what you need, so you don't have to leave your house for, about 3 days. That might not be a terrible thing to consider right about now. We have Mercury going to be square to Uranus tomorrow. We have a new moon that just happened 8 hours ago, setting the tone for a whole lunar cycle at 2 degrees Pisces. That is basically everything about exercise and caution, self-protection, gathering what you need while at the same time protecting yourself from the aggressive forces that are inevitable when you are part of a society and everyone is together. So these are things that I went over in a lot more detail with the Pisces new moon forecast. Certainly Starseed Fellowship has access to their weekly astrology, and we've been going over a lot of these transits in detail to show where there are moments of clarity, where there's potential to really initiate and step into bravery and courage. But now's the time, friends, to really gather your courage rather than allowing the fear to just squash you into the ground. Because it can happen. And yeah, so I'm just going to leave it there. So a couple things I'd like to share with you real quick before we move on. Of course, these are not new. This was all stuff that I talked about last week as well. The energetic tune-up, I am still leaving this open for people. It's a Reiki session, a distance Reiki session with an intuitive reading along with it. This has been really powerful for people so far. I'm having it at a discount still for $66. You're getting roughly about an hour of work plus the recording to give you my impressions, my feedback about the energy work, and then the intuitive reading that's usually a card reading. So I'm keeping that up because this is the time to really check in with yourself energetically. I'm also have the draconic chart. We're going to talk about the Draco today too. There's an interesting astrological transit with the moon and her nodes today that are bringing up some of this Draco energy. And what's interesting is I saw a verse today that came up. So I find guidance in every place that I am led to look. But I do go to Bible.com and I just look at the verse of the day and let that take me from there in a lot of ways. And so it was Matthew 10, verse 16, and be as wise as serpents and innocent as doves, right? So I would recommend the entire chapter of Matthew 10 if you are looking for something to, just to read or give you some insight. I think that entire chapter is definitely worth it. So the Galactic Oversoul is the Draconic chart. And the Draconic chart is looking at the unconscious drives of the individual. The natal chart is the blueprint of your personality in this lifetime, and the geometric architecture based on the sky clock. The draconic chart shifts everything around to show you where the soul is really driving you, and it is a lot of unconscious drives. Let me tell you, in my own work, my own readings, and then with other people I've done these readings for, it really fills in a lot of gaps that you're like, whoa, I had no idea this type of these types of aspects were really driving me under the surface, because the soul is here to evolve and to grow and to learn and to return back to God and to source. And so the personality is just this one go around with the seed. And that's important to understand those surface level aspects with the natal chart. But the draconic chart, and when I say galactic oversoul, I am focusing on starseeds because, let's face it, I mean, we tend to be the most hunted and sought after individuals and manipulated moving forward. And this is why I minister to starseeds. It's not like we're, it's really easy to get pulled into this fantasy that we're somehow more special than other people. We do have a very important imperative and mission, and it's essential that we take that seriously and not get caught up in the fantasy of like we're somehow better or more special, because that's the type of stuff that gets what's the word I'm looking for? It gets exploited really easily. And so knowing what your unconscious drives are and that oversoul level, especially in relation to your starseed markings, it really fills in the gap. So I'm offering that as a sale too. You go to my website, it's in the description box below, and everything's on the homepage that's being offered right now, and you can book right from there. So if you are waiting for a mini reading that I have offered you, thank you for your patience. This is the week that I'm going to be doing that. So I just wanted to put that out there because there's a couple people that I've offered to look at their charts and just do a really quick snapshot. And that is coming. I have not forgotten about you. I make sure that I write down everything. So, and the last thing I want to share is that our Catalyst Classroom, we've been going over the moon, and our last session was really cool. I did the moon's role in spiritual evolution through anthroposophy. And if you don't know what anthroposophy is, this is this is the framework in which Rudolf Steiner broke away from theosophy, which was very much focused on the mystery schools and keeping them hidden, and all of the information that is contained therein that is relevant to all of us and our birthright as human beings. Steiner pulled away from that, knowing that that was problematic. And so we looked at the moon's role in our spiritual evolution based on his perspective, his writing. And what I love about Steiner is that he's not a mystic. They like to call him that, or a medium or a channeler or any of these things. He really was an academic and a scientist, and he approached these topics with the mind of an intellectual and a scientist, and in fact called it spiritual science. And one of his primary focal points was that the Christ principle is really the only way. And considering that that's my perspective at this point, however that makes sense to you, he really speaks to me, and so much has fallen away, but we looked at the moon's role through anthroposophy, and it was really, really cool. I learned so much through the research, and I got great feedback from people. So this week, we're going to have our live Q&A. But if you're interested in the Catalyst Classroom, we do 4 sessions covering a topic where we go into all of the different aspects, and then we have come together for our live Q&A and really dive in very deeply. So when you sign up, you still have access to all the previous classroom sessions, the videos, if I made slides, any of that is available to you no matter when you sign up. So there's a library that's available to you no matter when you come into the fold. And so you also get access to your weekly astrology report by being part of this group, our Starseed Fellowship, which is also twice a month, and that's an open forum, private Zoom call. We have a private Telegram chat group. This is where a lot of the work is happening. There's not a lot in the public sphere right now in terms of that. So if you're interested in those things, you can check out the description box below. You go to Subscribestar, and you make you subscribe monthly to these things. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, just so you know. And finally, sorry guys, I'm sorry. And for those of you who are here and you are here as a regular and you hear the spiel every week, thank you. I really appreciate you being patient and humoring all of this since you already know it, because there are others that are not part of this group, and this is new information, or this is the only way they find out about what I'm offering. So finally, I don't have any material yet, but I will. It'll be on social media. It'll be on my email list. I will put it up on the community tab on YouTube. So if you are watching this on BitChute or Odyssey on Rumble and you don't have access to any of those things, you might want to consider it. And I'll bring it up again next week, but I just want to let you know that we're going to do another 3-week or 21-day event of Reiki healing attunements. I did this last leading up to the fall equinox, and it was incredible. So I do a healing attunement every day. I gather a list. It'll be sliding scale. You can contribute within that sliding scale, and then you get the attunement along with everyone else every day. And we're also I'm going to be building a protection grid along with this, which will also be part of the attunement. And I will be going over how I build that grid, the minerals and the crystals that I use. So it's going to be certainly the healing attunement, but we're adding this protective element and when we get into the reading, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about, how important it is that we are utilizing these natural tools in order to harness and have a relationship with the natural energies of the planet, so that when they are being hijacked, that we have the means to use our own field and our own connection to the natural world in order to protect ourselves, protect our homes, and shield ourselves from the bombardment. So if you are like, what are you talking about, and you're really confused, you can email me or get on Telegram or Facebook, and we can have a conversation, because this is very important to consider. So keep an eye out for the promotional material. Like I said, it'll be a sliding scale. You get the attunements. It's for 3 straight weeks, going to start on March 1st, leading up to the vernal equinox, okay? So keep an eye out for that, friends. Okay, now we can get into the stuff that we're here for. So I'm going to take away the flyers, and I'm going to bring myself up here. So we had an X-class flare just a couple of days ago, right? And we're going to look at this flare, and I want to talk about it because, it's possible you can view sunspots, coronal mass ejections, coronal holes, all of these things. You can actually see them with I wouldn't say the naked eye, although some sunspots you probably can. But if you have a solar telescope, it is absolutely possible to view these things. But the reality here is that we are going off of information that is being given to us by particular agencies and organizations that have satellites and observatories up in orbit, okay? Or so they tell us. So something to keep in mind is that this is what we're being told, that unless you are viewing it for yourself or through a source that you absolutely implicitly trust with their own solar telescope, you always have to take this with a grain of salt. Now, with that being said, on the 17th and the 18th, we had an X-class flare. The X-class is the highest class that we have of X-ray light, okay? And you can see here that I'm showing you that it was a very large flare, and it sent out a CME that was going in... Excuse me, I'm sorry. You can see that the halo of the CME is like almost all around the disk, okay? So there is an expectation between tonight and early tomorrow morning that we are going to get the CME from this X-class flare, okay? So I want to show you that. Now, there are 2 different models of what this looks like. So you can see how large the spread of the CME from this flare is, and this little red dot or yellow dot is Earth. These are the observatories that are in orbit, solar observatories that are in orbit. We have Mars over here as well. So Mars is going to get the CME as well. And so there is a connection with Mars and Mercury this week. Astrologically, Mars is in a very interesting degree of Gemini. It's crossed the midway point of Gemini, and we've gone from the experience of discovery to now the exteriorization, right? And there's a lot of energy around. The wording is kind of funny depending on which source you look at for Sabian symbols. One of them is haranguing, which I think is kind of funny. And then proselytizing. But it's the idea that we are really dramatically exteriorizing our newfound experience through our own discovery, exploration, our learning, and attempting to get people on board with it. And so Mars being in this place, soon to be in a trine to Mercury this week, and Wednesday actually, there's a lot of opportunity to step forward with some bravery in our communication, in our expression, and our exchange. And so I find it interesting too that this CME is also looking to be impacting Mars pretty directly as well. So we'll go over more of the astrology as we go on. So this is NASA's model. Then we get to the NOAA model, and this is it looks through the Space Weather Prediction Center, which is not NASA, but is a different agency. And I'd like to show you what they call their Enlil solar wind prediction. My gosh. It's the same thing. So one of them is like, we'll get a glancing blow, and another one is like, oh no, we're going to get a direct hit. And so again, you see the two solar observatories. So the Enlil spiral is saying, from the Space Weather Prediction Center, is saying, okay, we're going to get this glancing blow, but if you look at NASA's thing, we're going to get a direct hit. What does this matter? Well, when we get a massive CME, right, a coronal mass ejection, what does that mean? Charged particles of plasma that are coming to us, interacting with our magnetic field, which apparently is weakening, right? Now, it's important to consider, I wonder if that's natural or not, because I'll tell you what, I, up until very recently, had just kind of taken for granted that maybe this was a natural progression that happened every 3,000, 6,000, 12,000 years. And I'm really questioning that. Really. Actually, I'm beyond questioning it. I've accepted that it's intentionally being destabilized, but that's all I'm going to say about that. So either way, the magnetic field is weakening, regardless if it's natural or artificial. And when we get hit with a CME from an X-class flare with incredible density of charged particles coming to hit the magnetosphere and penetrating very deeply into our atmosphere, right? The possibility for auroras to be very strong, to show us those pink colors that are very rare. We usually get red and greens, but when you get pink, you know that those charged particles are coming deeper into our atmosphere, okay? And they come further south. Okay, I've seen pictures of auroras now in Montana, and not even from something like this. Oregon, that's far south for auroras, okay? So this is something that I want you to really keep in mind. If you are even further south than some of these places, right? Oregon, you're looking roughly 45 degrees north latitude, okay? Montana, if you start to see auroras and you are south of these places, this is really important to consider, okay? Now, the Carrington event, 1859, very similar to where Neptune is right now in Pisces. Neptune was also in the same place in Pisces at the Carrington event. Again, none of us were there. We're going off of what was told to us, right? What was dictated to us through science materials, right? We weren't there. So we have to take it on the authority of whoever is writing these things out, okay? But there are chronologies, right? There are people who wrote things down. And so we have to decide, how much of this is based on this huge flare that came or not. What we do know is that all the telegraph wires caught on fire, even though they knew it was coming and they unplugged things. the induction was so strong, it still caused damage, okay? So we're getting a CME from this large X-class flare that is set to hit tonight into tomorrow, and we have a Mercury in Aquarius that represents, I don't know, maybe the internet, our global digital communication, the wave function that connects all of us in a network represented by Aquarius. Mercury, the realm of our own mind, how our nervous system functions, right? Sensory and perception. Is going to be in a square to Uranus in Taurus. So just keep these things in mind as we go through the next couple of days, all right? This is not about fear-mongering at all. This is about being aware of the information being presented to us, how we feel in our own bodies and our own field, and tapping into the field of the planet and what that relationship means to us and what it feels like to us, and these astrological transits that are pretty big, like Mercury square Uranus. I mean, things happen that are unexpected, and you may have to change your plans. Something may happen that forces you to do something different. You may have, and there are breakthroughs that come with this type of energy. It's true. But there's also a lot of mishaps in communication and things like that. So just keep this in mind, right? Because assuredly, those who want to control this situation are very aware of the astrology and have been for a long time. So, and also, too, that there is a strong correlation between these large flares and CMEs and seismic activity. So if you're not watching Dutch Since, I would really recommend it, because he is so on point, because he knows how to track the low frequency waves that are going around the fault lines and the plates, and his predictions are usually pretty strong and pretty on point. And so he talked about this too, right? So we have a couple days until things start to really happen, but I would say that this new moon, right? How are we going to exercise some protection and some caution within ourselves, right? The new moon is an impulse. We have a whole lunar cycle to get through where we come to culmination and fulfillment about, and this impulse becomes a very clear, very objective type of vision, or what is an impulse becomes an object that we can see very clearly with the full moon. And the full moon will be in a trine directly with Uranus and Taurus. So it'll be an Earth trine. The moon will be in Virgo. So I just wanted to bring those things up. How are the tones in your head? Are you tracking them to the Schumann resonance? Are you really paying attention to what's going on with the quality, with the frequency, and the amplitude of the Schumann resonance? And when those instances of tinnitus are coming, I bet you're going to start to see something when you really start tracking these things. I would really recommend it for as long as we are able to do so, right? So this is the different aspects of the Schumann. So this is, let's see, this is the amplitude. So even just a couple days ago, you can see that there was a lot of movement in the amplitude, the volume, right, of the Schumann. The frequency itself, it's supposed to be at 7.8. Another thing I've started really questioning is the fact that the Schumann is, the pitch is changing, right? And we've been led to believe that this is a natural progression, part of ascension. Is it? Is it? I don't know. That's very interesting. And so you can see these jumps in the pitch or the frequency of the Schumann at different times. I wonder what else is going on that you can correlate to these things. I'm going to get in so much trouble talking about this. Okay. And of course, the quality of it. And you can see a pretty strong pattern here where this red line goes up and comes back. And then, there's a spike in the quality up here, and then the red line goes up and comes down. And there's a spike in the quality on these two factors. Same thing, and a really big spike here as well. So it's just worth checking out and seeing what sticks out for you. Okay, so I'm gonna bring up the reading now, and this is probably the more difficult part of today's transmission, because I mean, it always helps to connect with you guys in terms of really balancing out our energy. So, because when I woke up this morning, I felt very unsettled, very, very unsettled. And you can see some of that probably in the reading, but I know it's not just me. So it's okay if you're also feeling unsettled, okay? The Knight of Cups. This is a direct connection to that telluric energy, the energy under the Earth's surface. We'll talk about that. The passion or strength is reversed, right? And we have the Ten of Wands or oppression as our outcome. So remember that the horizontal axis is the cause and effect relationship out there that we are interacting with. The vertical axis is our energetic polarity, right? What's happening at our root? How is it moving up into our heart, which is the axis point of our energy and the world around us is the heart, right? This is where our toroidal field stems from, is the heart chakra. And this is not woo-woo. This is truly very physiological. And it's important that we consider this and take this to heart. And surrounding this is the guidance, okay? So take these things kind of separately, The guidance that surrounds it is not necessarily part of how this relationship between these two axes will come to a conclusion. And this is a snapshot of the energies as they were in that moment, okay? And I'm very particular about my process of getting into this space and my morning ritual and prayer, right? And really setting the space and only being a channel for God's word and nothing else. And I'm very meticulous about this. So just in case you're having any issues or doubts about that, because there's so much room with these practices to be led astray. And I think that we're really starting to get down to the deeper levels of that. So let's start with the Knight of Cups. Okay. Now, the Knight of Cups. The Knight is the fire energy. And when we have these court cards, we know that these are representative of us as people or other people in our lives, okay? And so the Knight of Cups, look, he is bringing the chalice, right? The crab. You could even go so far as to say the Holy Grail with all of this energy. The cups are the waters of our soul. So Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, especially right now, the moon in Pisces. This is going to come up in other ways during this reading. There are wings here. I'm getting strong Gabriel vibes from this Knight of Cups. So when we kind of break this down a little bit, this is the Aquarius to Pisces space, right? From Aquarius to Pisces is the Knight of Cups, and that's basically where we just went with the sun. And certainly, even in the last 24 hours, this is where the moon has come from, is Aquarius to Pisces. And of course, with all of this chalice, crab energy, the moon is really strong in this cup. So it's the fire in the element of water. There is a contrast that is attempting to be balanced between these two opposing forces. So there's creativity, there's emotion with this person. They're fully in charge of their impulses and feelings when it's upright. So this is a compassionate, healing, creative, poetic person, right? This card also represents the ways in which energy flows in your home. And so again, we go back to this Cancer and with the crab and the chalice, the cup, for instance, but definitely the crab energy related to Cancer. And Cancer is your home, the energy in your home, the energy in your intimate relationships. This is about the management of telluric energy, which is the electrical current that moves underground. It is the energy that Tesla tapped into out in Colorado Springs when he put all the light bulbs in the ground, and he's like, holy shit, the electricity in the crust of the planet is lighting everything up. He discovered the means to harness wireless energy. Okay, this is the earth current, and this is represented by the Schumann resonance, okay? The Schumann resonance is the measurement of the electromagnetic field or the current that moves throughout underneath. Now, me personally, I've connected to this. I do it every day now, but I connected to this very specifically years ago and saw it and experienced it as a network or as, I hate to use the word circuitry because I don't want to make it into something artificial, or like a mycelial network, right? It was a network that moved throughout the crust of the planet, and then the main nodal points are where the ley lines connect. So this card is about managing this energy in your home. So now you start to see where these protection grids that I want to start bringing into the conversation are really, really important. This is about making decisions based on your heart and how you feel, not what's in your head, okay? I mean, not that that's a bad thing, but it's the heart where your intuition is really going to be activated. Intuition guides you, all right? And one of the mantras with this card, for instance, is I align myself with what? Natural energy. So this is the energy coming into the situation. Really, really favorable, okay? This is like the thing that gives me hope based on everything else that's surrounding this reading, okay? That we are coming into this situation as this energy. So maybe someone in your life represents this. Maybe you are feeling the presence of Gabriel, for instance, in your life, or some other guide, or you yourself are embodying this energy and really tapping into the natural energy. Because right at the heart of things, we have the passion or lust or strength. This is number 11 in the Thoth deck. Something else to keep in mind is that in the original Rider-Waite or original tarot, this card is number 8, and it's a woman that's kind of like, got her hand in the lion's mouth, and it's, again, the strength, and not the strength of suppressing, but the strength of managing this more animalistic energy, our kundalini, right? Our passions, our creative force that moves through us, that's represented by the 5th house. So it's the 11th house where we experience that as part of the whole, okay? So, but this is reversed, all right? So when we're looking at this card reversed, there's weakness, there's depression, there's dissatisfaction. It's time to tune into our current level of inner strength, right? Which is something that's already, we're coming into this moment with all of this Knight of Cups energy and really tapping in. And even at the heart of things, we're faltering or struggling or we're feeling fear. It's okay. This is a reminder that it's time to tune back into, well, where are we really? Instead of being unrealistic or pushing it away. Remember last week we had at the heart of the matter, the 8 of Cups, the indolence, right? The apathy and the ways that we are, we kind of get pulled into numbness because the fantasy has lost all of attraction and we are frustrated. It's kind of the same thing. We're coming into this moment and it's time to tap back in with where we really are and just be honest with ourselves. It's also time to handle things with a greater alertness and awareness, okay? And not necessarily relying on somebody else to tell you what is or isn't, but start to tap into your own intuition and what your heart is telling you, because you're going to need it. Right? And live and value the present moment and not to fear, right? It's important that we don't, and it's not so much about, well, if something is inducing fear in you, then it must not be real, and I'm just going to ignore that. It's more of like, I'm going to face my fear with courage and bravery. And yes, there may be a sense of weakness or dissatisfaction right now, but this is just a trigger to be like, okay, it's time to tune into this space and not turn away from it. Because we have all of this energy coming from it with the Knight of Cups. This is really favorable. But when this is reversed, it's almost like, you see how she's pushing the seed up, and this is important because Venus is coming into Aries. She's already in Aries today, and the very beginning of Aries is it's so tenuous, right? The possibility, we're emerging and we have this impulse to be, but it can so easily just we can easily fall back into formlessness, back into the ocean of non-differentiation so easily. Just like the seed, the seed, when it starts to germinate, has to struggle against its own ego or shell. It has to push, the seedling has to push up through the soil to reach the light. It's tenuous. And this is what I'm feeling too as well, to the point where you can see when it's reversed, she's pushing it back down. And this is not the same as taming the beast. This is repressing it, okay? Because we are struggling. We're just struggling with what's going on. And part of that struggle is energetically, we are like, okay, this is also reversed, the Three of Scrolls. So setting your course, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Broadening your horizons, traveling to new locations, you're on a ship on the ocean and you're like, where can we go? So when this is reversed, there's some real issues here about where we thought we were going. And we may not be looking ahead as far as we can go. We may not be giving ourselves the freedom to move forward. There's miscommunication. There's someone misleading you about your direction. And plans for a trip may be changed or canceled. And this is so strong with a Mercury square Uranus, which is exact tomorrow. So this is down at the root. Okay, maybe the fact that this is happening might actually be a blessing. Just consider that, right? And one of the pieces of advice with a Mercury square Uranus is that, maybe you want to change your plans so you're not so stressed about the situation. Maybe it will relieve some pressure. Wherever you find yourself, the fact that this is surrounded by the wrath of Sekhmet, which we'll go into, and of course the polar bear, which is you have to stand in your power and integrity without attachment to outcome. Something is, where we thought we were going, or our ability to, set the course to get there is being disrupted. And I'm getting those Mercury square Uranus vibes really, really strong. And again, the wrath of Sekhmet, it's really strong. So, and then we this is a very troubled energetic polarity and axis here, okay? And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It is what it is. And I feel it. I feel it for myself. I feel it empathically for the people around me, the people who are part of the Starseed Fellowship. We've been having to come to some harsh truths lately about things that I can't talk about here. I can't, because they are things that have been hidden from us. So the thing in terms of what's going on at the top of our awareness. Now, here's birth, number 4. Right? This is such a nice card, right? You have the 2 little kids, and there's a doggy, and there's the mama, and she's got a little basket of flowers, and you can see a little stone circle out here. Gosh, this is such a lovely card. So when it's reversed, right? Challenges or delays, difficulty in finding our purpose. Gather your courage. You may need to find a different path. You may need to find a different way of going about how you want to go, or take your next steps. But I'm not suggesting this is the opposite of birth, which would be, exiting the world. And maybe that's the way you're conceptualizing it. But I would say, because it's not the death card, I would say that it's really just an inversion or some sort of blockage in terms of where we're trying to go. And again, it's important that we gather our courage here, because number 4 is really meant to be a stable position, the square, and to have it reversed, it's no less a 4, but it may feel like things are either turned on their head, or we are just not getting where we want to go. There may be difficult labor pains that we are experiencing and conceptualizing with this card. So there's, again, it's just this difficulty is pretty stacked here energetically. And there's guidance around this. It's it's troubling, but there is guidance. So oppression. Now, on the surface, you're just like, oh, oppression, great, right? The 10 of Wands. But remember that the 10 of Wands it's Saturn in Sagittarius, right? And when you look at the original tarot in the Rider-Waite tarot, what do you see with the Ten of Wands? For those of you who know, then you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't, I'm going to tell you. You see a man who is holding all 10 of the wands and trying to get somewhere. This is about the burden that we have placed upon ourselves when it comes to the crystallization of our purpose, our belief, our alchemical transmutation. When we create something physical, we contribute to the crystallization of something, we have to then carry that. That can feel oppressive, okay? So the 10 of Wands, but it's upright. So even if there's blocked energy or our will feels thwarted, I wonder if we feel that way considering this entire vertical axis is reversed right now. Maybe do we feel like our will is thwarted? Do we feel like maybe our energy is blocked a little? It usually comes about because we are repressing something that we need here. And we get angry and frustrated about, I don't know, maybe a world event possibly. Because Sagittarius isn't about us. It is about our relationships and what they mean. So we may not like what this means. We may think our individual will is being thwarted. Our energy is being blocked. We're angry. We're frustrated about something. Isolation, aggression, separation. Those 3 days. I wonder. I really do. And you know what? Honestly, I'm not here to predict this. What I'm saying is worst case scenario, nothing happens. That's fine. That's great. But do you want to be caught with your pants down and you don't have the means to take care of yourself in those 3 days? I don't know. Just an idea. Because, dun, 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 Sekhmet. So for those of you in the Catalyst Classroom, we know who Sekhmet is because this was part of the Sun sessions. Sekhmet is one of the daughters of Ra. Sekhmet is the eye of Ra. Another way that you could look at Sekhmet is Kali, right? Intense reaction, out for blood, no mercy. Now, what did Sekhmet do? Ra sent Sekhmet out to destroy humanity. And because they were being, because they were corrupt. And so that's what she wants. She wants blood, just like Kali, right? She wants blood. She goes out for blood, right? This is a blanket type of situation, the Wrath of Sekhmet. And what's interesting is that you really get the energy of this card. Not only do you see it kind of, the face and the big mouth that's open, but it's really drawing you down to the bottom of the card where there are, and you can even see the way this artist rendered this, right? There is a uterus, there's fallopian tubes, there is a birth canal, and there is this it's very interesting in terms of what's down at the bottom here. But Sekhmet it's the Eye of Ra, and this is exactly what she did. She went out and destroyed humanity. Now, she also has a bloodlust that Ra had to basically trick her into stopping because she didn't stop. Once she got the taste, she was like, I'm going for it. And so the story is that what Ra did, because she went out and did what he wanted, right, to balance things out and get rid of the corruptive force, but she kept going, or wanted to go, because she has this bloodlust. And so what did he do? He basically spread beer, like an alcoholic substance, or beer. It was definitely beer. The Egyptians had beer. Spread it all over and dyed it with like a red ochre. So she thought it was blood. So then she's like lapping up the beer, thinking it's blood, and then gets drunk. And then she's like, oh, I'm good. And then is able to, go home and return back to Ra. Very interesting. Right? And so just to see this come out is pretty intense, okay? And the polar bear surrounding it. So setting our course, right? Being reversed, being like, I'm trying to get somewhere, and, I'm getting stopped in my tracks here with this intense reaction, or the Wrath of Sekhmet. And with this solar flare that came off, and the CME that's coming in, and everything surrounding it, Mercury square Uranus, I'm not saying it's even going to be natural. I have no idea. I just feel like it's better to be prepared than not in this situation. And then we have the polar bear, right? Stand up for yourself and speak your truth respectfully and compassionately with no attachment to outcome, right? Your heart is your place of power. Wise as serpents, innocent as doves, right? Speak and act from a place of truth and dignity, and then you have nothing to fear. So this is going to be different for lots of different people, right? It may not necessarily mean you going out there and just like, projecting yourself out there, but it might, especially Mercury and Mars in that trine on Wednesday, the 22nd, there is this trine, and it really does support the ability to really, actually, Mercury will be at the same degree that the sun was at the Leo full moon. And for those of you who remember, that's when shit really started to change. You were like, oh, damn. And that degree is about, basically being a guardian, being a watchdog of your own energy. And so perhaps this is less about speaking, although it could be, and more about emitting a strong field from your heart in order to protect yourself in a situation that might not be going according to plan for you. But nevertheless, there is this really intense energy coming in, okay? I feel like the polar bear is really speaking more to that. But it may be, you may need to share things with people so that they know what to expect, or to just be truthful and honest and not be attached to the outcome. Not everybody's going to listen to what you have to say, but putting it out there with dignity and respect it goes a long way, right? Now, Now, when it comes to this birth, right? So the Falcon energy is something that's been really strong with me personally. And strangely enough, I've talked to other people kind of recently who have had similar dreams about the Falcon and about the same type of people that I've had connections to, which is the indigenous people of Siberia, and that there is a Siberian falcon that the medicine women would they would have this falcon that was their companion. So the falcon is about it says act on opportunity that's before you and commit to it without equivocation, right? And so yes, the birth aspect is not upright, and it's not all like, hey, something new is coming in. In fact, it may be way more challenging than we had anticipated. But this is really suggesting that if we keep, even if we don't feel fully prepared, or we have doubts in our ability to, take care of ourselves, or to see exactly what it is we're going for, this says that Providence is on our side. So it's important to stay focused on the goal, whatever it is, even if we are getting kind of blown off course. That's funny. And be mindful of the purpose of the mission, right? What are you here to do? What is your mission? I mean, do you follow the pathway of the Draco and basically become hyper possessive of the fruits of your labor to the point where you don't feel that, that they are yours and yours alone, and it's not part of the dance of life, which is what has led them to be so corrupt, as an archetypal reference, or, are you staying focused on the purpose of the mission, which is to be part of this creation and to know that the fruits of your labor and your service is what you are here to offer. So this Falcon helps us deal with whatever concerns come up without being distracted. And what is so distracting is fantasy. Now, I am not suggesting that there's anything wrong with the mermaid, or that being enchanted, or having wishes or fantasies. But here's the thing. The moon's in Pisces. It's going to cross over Neptune within the next day as well before moving into Aries. It's important that we don't get sucked up into the fantasy or into La La Land, or especially with the moon in Pisces. I mean, the boundaries emotionally and subconsciously go out the window, and then we find ourselves identifying in this space that may not even be real to us, but we're caught up in the fantasy. And so at first I was really confused. I was like, what is this about? And the more I really sat with it, especially with the Falcon, the more I'm like, eye on the goal here, right? Because you need to be able to trust your intuition so that there's no delay, right? No delay when you need to act, whatever it is, even if it's in the sense of what am I trying to do is being suppressed or thwarted, or things are a lot more difficult, or I need to take a different direction. How are you going to know which direction to go if you are not focused on, that your vision is not sharp? And I would say that the chanting, the tones, the enchanting aspect, the fantasy, the wishes, especially with the moon in Pisces right now, is very, very strong, and it can pull us into that formlessness and that liminal space that is going to keep us from actually staying focused, okay? Because it's difficult times right now. Very difficult. There's no getting around that, right? And I don't think anybody's going to truly just like skate by without having to be challenged at some level right now. So, like I said, Mercury square Uranus tomorrow, Wednesday, Mars in a trine to Mercury. This is where bravery and courage really get strong, especially when it comes to protecting yourself, using your voice, using your energy, using your own central nervous system in order to protect yourself. And you may not like what's happening. You may feel oppressed by it. And that's something worth expecting, I'd say. And not to say that we should just accept feeling oppressed. That's not what I mean. But remember, the Ten of Wands is that we have burdened ourselves with all of everything that we attempted to create, and to all our belief systems, right? Sagittarius in the 9th house, like the dark side of it is dogma and belief. And it's never, ever supposed to crystallize. It's always supposed to be, the higher mind is an expansive space that is always meant to get broader, right? That's what broadening your horizons really means. And if it's inevitable that we come into Capricorn and we crystallize our contribution, right? But when we want to stay in that space of endless transmutation, for instance, it can be really difficult to bear the burden of our own creation. And everybody's going to feel that in a lot of different ways. And so you want to be able to scan the horizon and know exactly when it's time to commit to a direction, and not get pulled into fantasy land. And like I said, the moon in Pisces, that's going to be very difficult. Now, it's not to say that you shouldn't have, give yourself the opportunity to be a more imaginative, more creative, right? To relax into your imagination. And I would say even the moon meeting Neptune is going to heighten your sensitivity so much to everything that you could really, again, get distracted. So just be aware of these dynamics, okay? It's a difficult reading. It is a difficult time energetically, but we are absolutely, like the Knight of Cups coming into the moment says everything to me, that we are absolutely, we have all of the means in which to flow and align with natural energy right now in order to be, to be in alignment and to create that resonance around us that is an offering, but also to kind of a protective mechanism, just like Cancer and the crab, right? The shell around the crab is what protects the inside. So that's also something to keep in mind as we move through these times, okay? So I will share with you real quick I'm going to share with you real quick the chart for today and this week, and then we will finish up for today's Starseed ministry, my friends. So, like I said, here is today. Now, the one thing I want to talk about here is actually exactly where the moon is when I started this transmission and this broadcast, which is 6 to 7 degrees of Pisces. Now, this is opposite Draco, all right? And it's in an aspect with her own nodal axis, the ascending and descending node of the moon. So this is the soul's trajectory. Also in a trine to Draco, but also conjunct Andromeda. So these are big starseed activations, and the moon opposite Draco at this moment is the idea here that we are... Now, many of us have Draco, and I'm telling you, I've seen it over and over and over again, that these aspects are here, and maybe we chose them, maybe we didn't, but we have to live with them and what it means. And wise as a serpent, it's there. So what we do with it is up to us. So when it is this particular degree opposite Alpha Draconis is this large cross that's on a rock in the middle of the ocean, right? And it's this idea that no matter what, when we are uncompromising in our own integrity, our own truth, not our own truth, but the truth of divine creator, God, source, the great spirit, when we are aligned with that, we can withstand. And it's opposite Draco that is like, I am utilizing this energy of perfection of form, of dedication, of purification, of mastery of myself for my own ends, right? And so without the surrender back to the source of all, then you stay there, and this is where the wisdom of the serpent becomes a negative. It's not wisdom; it becomes something else entirely. So the moon opposite of this place is going to pull on that Draco aspect, just like any other opposition, but emotionally, internally, subconsciously, intuitively, we know that this part of ourselves, we can stand in the illumination of God or source in this moment, and it will have a harmonious connection to the pathway of all of our soul's trajectory right now, which is that when we have dropped our connection to a past that doesn't even accept us, or a past that really doesn't define who we are now, then we have the space in which to receive the revelation, which is that shaft of light, right? And so in this moment, it's right here. It's right here illuminating us as if we were on that rock out in the middle of the ocean, right? Just like, by ourselves out there going, geez, like, is there anyone around? And then you get like the angelic light on you. And that's just same story with the woman at the ancestral well, right? She was the only one that Jesus revealed himself as the Christ to her directly in words, right? When he had only alluded to it to everybody else. And he certainly gave his disciples the capacity to, do Reiki healing, essentially. He attuned them all, right? But he never said, point blank, this is who I am. But he did to the woman at the well. And that was because she was not connected to a past that didn't even accept her anyway. And that allowed her to receive the revelation. So there's a powerful moment that just really passed us by very recently as soon as I started the broadcast. So I kind of like that's where we started, was in this moment. Okay. And Mercury is also going to be in a sextile to Chiron. So here's Mercury here at 13 to 14, Aquarius, and a sextile to Chiron. Now, it really depends here, Mercury in Aquarius, right? Our individual minds, sensory and perception, plugged into either the Borg, the Matrix, whatever, or the resonance of life itself, and natural energies. It really depends on where we're plugged into, how we're going to, either fall back into victimhood, we're going to fall back into fear about our own healing potential, right? We're going to get caught up in the narrative of evil, right? Even though our ability to heal ourselves and our own energy field is our birthright. And Mercury in the sextile in Aquarius it's not exactly trying to bypass natural evolution. I mean, the degree, that's what it represents. It's about a train going through a tunnel. But we can see it as when we, acknowledge our birthright to heal ourselves, to be autonomous and sovereign in our own bodies and in our own fields, our aura, if you want to call it that. It's not so much that it allows our mind to tap into something that is it is quantum in some ways, but it's conceptualized in the astrology and the Sabian symbols as like bypassing the natural course of things, where you'd have to go all the way around the mountain, right? This train goes through a tunnel because this tunnel was dug through the mountain. But how did that happen? Well, people had to actually go and dig through the mountain. You had to use your ingenuity. You had to use your actual skill and your labor and be consistent about it in order to create that tunnel, right? And so there's something very powerful about the Kundalini when we realize that it is, the movement of our cerebral spinal fluid through our central nervous system that will allow us to tunnel through what otherwise seems impossible in our own minds. But it has to be at the root, not for our own sake, not for just grabbing power and manipulating others or getting caught in the Draco energy, for instance. So be as wise as serpents, innocent as doves, right? That if you don't have the innocent part, this is where people really fall off, right? And we know how that goes. And there are a lot of people out there who are presenting themselves as somehow our friends, or maybe not in your direct life, but maybe, but out there in terms of influence land, that have not been forthright about how they've taken the cheat code, thinking that they're somehow got a leg up on us and that they're going to survive something. And I just, whatever. This is not directed at them. They're not listening. Well, they might be, but it's not going to work. But for us here, this sextile is really crucial to recognizing that we have the capacity to tunnel through all of our obstacles with our own consciousness and our own nervous system, if we don't feel guilty about having this capacity, and that we realize that it's like a super, it's a superpower. And it's not really superpower. It's just inherent to being a 12D human, right? Being made in the image of a divine creative source. So that's going to be really important. So going through the rest of the week, like I said, so tomorrow is this Mercury square Uranus. You can see it right here, like I said. Lots of mishaps in communication, things changing that we don't plan, right? And how are we going to manage ourselves in that process? Because Uranus is in a position, it's just like, listen, the past is not enough to confirm where we're going. And that's really frustrating. And it's frustrating for many different reasons. And Uranus is consistently shifting the landscape around this. And Mercury in a square is like, okay, yeah, this is going to be some serious upsets, mishaps, things unexpected that are happening. But how are we going to manage that energy? I think that's the real question here. But the good thing is that right after this, the next day, look at this, Mercury in a trine to Mars. This is where the bravery comes forward, the initiative and the courage to really speak. And not only that, but have this mental maturity with Mars in Gemini is pretty strong, as we are using our capacity, our sense perception, our capacity to utilize our nervous system. And, our nervous system is electrical. And what happens when what emits from an electrical current? A magnetic field. Okay, you see now the biofield, right? And so in the process of wanting to use that as a means to safeguard ourselves, there's, but it requires a maturity. Mars can't just like fly off the handle. There's that falcon, right? That falcon is eye on the prize, right? And I'm not saying literal prize. I'm saying goal, focus, right? And you will know where to, you will act without even thinking about it. There will be no delay. And Mars is definitely going to act. And so, and to trust yourself to do it. This is on Wednesday. the 22nd. So let me see if there's any more major transits. You know, it's mostly moon transits from what I can tell until next Monday on the 27th, which is our first quarter moon, which will be in Gemini actually, and it will be conjunct Aldebaran, which is connected to Archangel Michael. So that's something that we will talk about next Monday. And of course, Starseed Fellowship people, you will have access to your weekly astrology on Wednesday, where we will talk more in depth about all of the transits that are going on. So my friends, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to check in with the live stream real quick. Hey, everyone. Alex says, I hit that wall on Saturday. Yep, totally. Yeah. And I feel like for me personally, I pre-waved a lot of this. So, and that's what I said to somebody yesterday, because they were like, you know, you're handling this really well. And I was like, you didn't see me 2 weeks ago when I was like dying inside and thought, you know, I couldn't even really function. I was compartmentalizing so much. But now I'm at a place where I can be steady as people are progressively hitting their walls in different ways. So thank you for being transparent and vulnerable enough to share that. I appreciate that, because it's okay. It's totally okay. Mama Wolf Memories, love you, girl, and make sure to hit the like button. Yes, I've been really bad about, reminding people, but that does really help get the... It's not so much about helping me, although that's great. It's about the algorithm spreading this out to a larger audience. And if you are getting value from this work, guaranteed other people are also going to find value here. So any way that you can help by hitting the like button, sharing the content, commenting on it, it all really does help. And it helps other people find us so that we can build a stronger community together. So there we go. My friends, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate all of you so very much. Catalyst Classroom people, we are going to meet this week to talk about all of our lunar sessions and what we have learned. So get on Subscribestar and put your vote in for when we do that. And Starseed Fellowship, I will be giving you your weekly astrology either by the end of tomorrow or Wednesday. And again, if you are waiting for a micro reading, I've already offered it to you. Thank you for your patience. That's going to be this week as well. There's a couple people in particular that I'm thinking of. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate you so very much. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people around you. Make sure that you have everything you need if you need to shelter in place for a little while. And hopefully we will be back together next Monday on the 27th for the Starseed Ministry. Take care, everyone. Bye.